Most investors overcomplicate property investing. They look at all these different strategies, they look at 10 different gurus telling them to do this, doing them that, and then what happens is a information overload and nothing gets done. In reality, when I'm buying property for clients and myself, it always falls into one of three categories. And if you're a first time investor, you'll likely fit into one of these three as well. So, for context, I run a buyer's agents, and my job is to find, analyze, secure investment properties for my clients. And after going through hundreds of deals, myself and my own portfolio included in this, it's always three types of properties that consistently make sense to just every scenario that apply. So, let's go through each one of these and all the benefits, the cons, and what they are. Now let's make this full screen and zoom in a little bit. So the first type, which is my favorite type, especially if you're a first investor looking at growing the portfolio, is this renovation for capital growth. So these properties are usually older homes. They are structurally sound and they're in good suburbs, but the cosmetic is updated. This is a very important factor. A lot of people, they'll see a rundown house and they'll start listing everything. So we need to do walls, and we need to do the roof, and we need to do maybe like I've even heard people saying, "Hey, we need to add an additional structure to the building." So add structure, and then on top of that, we need to do a full landscape job. And these aren't the type that we're talking about for this renovation for growth. These are a lot of falling within the development realm, but the renovation for capital growth, the goal here is to find cosmetic issues, not structural issues, not any of these ones that cost thousands and thousands of dollars, but cosmetic. So old carpets, bad paint, tied gardens, dated interiors. Tied gardens does not mean full landscape. That means add some mold, pull some weeds, tidy up the gardens. So it's nothing major. Structural issues only, no full rebuilds. And what the goal is we should be able to do a full cosmetic renovation for 20 to 40K. So this would include the floors. So whether we have carpet, or whether we have in the bedrooms, and then usually there'll be some sort of laminate timber. Laminate timber. My pen is not working today. Laminate timbers in the main hallways and everything. And then we'll also have paint is a big one. Gardens, so we want the front to look upkept. But the point is, you should be able to do all of this within the 20 to 40K range without touching the structural stuff. And by doing that, the return that you get on that 40 grand is massive. So oftentimes you would put 20-ish K into a house and you'll get around 100K if you do it correctly in price, if it's all brought correctly with the strategy. And 40 to 50K, you're looking about 150, which when we're looking at this, we can take out an 80% withdrawal of equity. Withdrawal, which then we're looking at 120K profit. So these are the best types of growth strategies for when you're actually building portfolios. So usually first time investors, if you're happy to get your hands dirty and do the painting yourself, this is the right path. And the power of this is if you buy right and you renovate smart, the market will do the rest. You just need to find the suburb to make sure that there's consistent growth happening in there. And then you just need to put the house quality standard up to the suburb standard, and then the market will do the rest and it will raise it based on the growth of that suburb. So these always work best for people, like I mentioned, with strong capital, who want strong capital growth. Okay, doing a bit of work up front and they sort of manufacture this equity because they do it themselves. So usually when you're starting your first house, you can see if we had house one here and then we make 120k there, we can then use 60k deposit to buy maybe house number two. If it's correct, you could buy a second one, but ideally that would be one strategy. So then you buy two and three. The other one is to sort out the first one, and then you would get the 60k deposit to buy the second one, and then you would put 30k, let's just say, into renovations. This should be a 60. And then obviously we've got profit for the next one. Then we do the same thing, rinse and repeat. So that's why you can do it. And by doing this, really just need to find the first house, get the 20 to 30 grand to put into it, which can be done many different ways. And then that sort of ramps up the portfolio. Now, onto the second way, high demand rental properties. These aren't always the prettiest homes. They're not the most exciting, usually, but they do have one thing in common. They are close to jobs, transport, schools, hospitals. So you'll notice with all of these is infrastructure. Let's just go like this, infrastructure. So they usually have very low vacancy rates. So they're very stable, high return rental income. And because of this, they're easy to rent, rarely vacant. So the vacancy rate is very low in the suburb. And it gives you this stable income, which you can sort of slowly build up on a graph like so, where you could say time is over here and over here will be the dollar sign. So it's going up slowly over time, but it's stability as opposed to the other one, which we just did, which is the capital growth, which sort of goes, balloons up like this. So time and dollars. So these are usually best if you want reliability and a strong rental demand. So often people that are in the portfolio, they start diversifying. They don't want to keep doing these flips, and they want to, maybe they've just got a lot of capital growth already, and they want to just sort of start lining up their portfolio like this, so they have some safe long-term returns, and then also helps with the tax deductions as well. So those who are already established, want tax deductions, want the long-term growth, usually it'll fall into this. And what they're doing is they're not chasing the highest yield on paper. Most of their benefits are off paper. Tax deductions, the the tax exemptions that you can get on this stuff. What's the word I'm looking for? Words are hard. It's Monday. And this is, it's not an intrinsic value, so it's not one of those properties where you say, hey, I made $100,000 on this property. It's one of those that is like, hey, I get X amount of benefits holding this property, and over Y time, I also get this. So it's about how easy the property is to rent in the real world. Now, don't get this confused with country properties, which country properties obviously have a stronger rent return over time and dollars here, because they have the capital growth just isn't there. So it's usually either pick a high rent return. So this one might be $300 a week, and this one, let's just put this in green, country, and then this would be, let's just say city. So what happens is in the country, we might get $500 a week here. But then in reality, when we actually look at the long-term growth, these still go up in prices. So this would be, let's just say resale, dollars time. And then for the country ones, what happens is they sort of go like this. So it's a very low growth. So we're talking about these two here for the growth aspects. So the prices aren't super high like they could get, but we're getting best of both worlds in this. And then the third one is bread and butter growth properties. This is in blue. The third type um, of the categories that we go, and they are just standard house. They're called bread and butter because it's just staple. It's boring. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing risky. It's nothing weird. It's just proven suburbs, good land, good location, and good fundamentals. Usually, the people that have already really established their profile portfolio. And you know, a good example is, let's say this is the city. I know it's a terrible city. There's the skylines. Usually, there's a radius around a capital city, which is the most expensive, and then that's a terrible circle. But this one might be strong dollars, and then this one might be $2, and then the one around here might just be a single dollar. So the ones we're looking at for the bread and butter are these ones here. So they're proven, they're not going to decrease, they're near the capital city, they should just stabilize and just be a long term um, part of your long term strategy. And the point of these is they will always grow over time. They are attractive for majority of buyers because if you're central, that's the best place to be in terms of property and in terms of resale and rental. Because if you live here, you can work. Let's say it's the capital city, you could work in suburbs this way. You can work suburbs this way, this way, this way. Where if you work here and the central's here and then your work is here, it's a lot longer distance. So usually the central is always one of the best and attracts the majority of the buyers. And it is a good starting point for first time investors if you have the growth and the long term portfolio strategy for you. But also if you want low stress. So these are going to grow. They are a lot pricier. So you will be paying upwards of close to the $1 million now, especially in Western Australia. And the point of these is you just buy it, you hold it, and there's no stress. They're always going to rent. They're not going to be vacant. You don't have to worry about your rental growth. You don't have to worry about renovations. You just spend that extra money and get the fancy stuff, and then you just let it sit there and ride the wave. So the whole point of this strategy is you're not being clever. You're in a stable position. You already have portfolio. Maybe your main focus for your own personal investment strategy isn't really property, but it's a business that you have, for example, and that's putting in a good amount of cash flow into the bank. So then would obviously buy a more stable home like this, where it just uh, constantly going up, less stress, less headaches, and everything in there. And historically, that is what's worked best for those types of people. Now, if when we're buying for clients in Western Australia, it always falls into one of those three categories. Usually, you'll find these ones are different focus. So the bread and butter is they have a focus, they need long-term growth. The high demand ones are usually people that already have a portfolio and they want to start increasing the rental income so they can build $50,000-$100,000 a year income coming in so they can retire from the jobs and they already have the capital behind them. And then usually the renovation ones is for people who are starting and they need to just, like the graph done, right? Like a straight up shot to building portfolio quick. So different clients suit different strategies, but there's always those three calls. And I would say 99% of people that will come in, or even if yourself, you identify one of those three categories. If you're a first time investor, depending on what I just mentioned, you'll be in one of those 100%. And once you know which one fits your situation, it becomes a whole lot easier. If we know that our situation is we want to go on this angle, then we know we're looking for investments. We're looking for suburbs where we can find these lower quality houses. And if we're looking at rentals, then we're obviously looking for stability and ones around schools and infrastructure. And if we're looking for bread and butter, we know we want to go to the city so we can set a radius around it when we're searching. So it becomes a hell of a lot easier. And the problem is people don't do that. They don't know the strategy. They don't know the categories and they just search everywhere. So if you want to drop a comment and you need help and you're not sure what category you fit in, put a comment down there, put your goal, see if you can identify one of those 3 categories, and then I will tell you which one is the best growth strategy. So a little blurb about your situation, what you want to do, and I'll put a comment on what's the best one for you. If you found this helpful, like and subscribe. We go through property investing and helping first-time investors, especially on the daily. We send videos, especially within the Western Australia market. So look forward to seeing you on the next video.